Hi guys, it's Jimi from the podcast. Here's a highlight from a recent episode. This week I sat down with worship leader Taya Smith from Hillsong United. If you're not familiar with Taya, she's the voice behind United's 2013 song, Oceans. Among other things, she told me about what life was like before joining United.
I told my parents that I didn't want to study at university and I wanted to be a singer. And moving to Sydney out of our small country town area felt like it was showing them that I was on the way, but I actually had no plan at all. And I was like, it feels right. Even that was insane. I had $200 in my bank, a place to live, and it was just like that money was the next week's rent and that was it. So it felt right. And I think at the time, I think I would have been 20, 21, moving out of home, and I think it was part of my faith journey of stepping out and starting to trust the Holy Spirit's voice in my life and going, it feels like the right time. Everyone else is telling me no. My parents are like, this is stupid, you should have some money. And I'm like, classic God, when you're obedient to the voice of God, I think he rewards you, but also it strengthens your resolve and going, no, I did hear the Holy Spirit's voice. And I moved and I was like, okay, God, I have nothing and I need to be working next week and I need to have enough money to pay for a ticket to church on the train and to have enough for rent. And so it's just crazy the way God works it out. I ended up getting 3 part-time jobs, got paid trials, so I had exactly enough money for rent, and then it just kind of continued from there. And so I started working in retail again, and I had been working in retail back in my hometown, and there was a couple of moments where I was folding a shirt and I'm like, God, did I really come to Sydney to do this? Because I could have done this back home. And I think it was for me, within the first 6 months of moving, I wasn't fully planted. I was at church, but I felt like I was going back home for engagements and birthdays, and an amazing friend just pulled me aside and said, hey, you need to make a choice. If you choose to be planted, just choose to be planted. Doesn't matter if it's at this church or another church. Just choose somewhere, get planted, get alongside the vision of the house, get behind the vision of the senior pastors, and you're going to see all your dreams realized on the side. And I think from that moment, I was like, cool, it's settled. Hillsong Church is my home. This is where I'm going to be. And because I was always going back home on the weekends, which is when church is and where you'd be able to serve. And I couldn't at the time serve in the creative team because retail, and it just didn't line up. So I became a youth leader and I loved it. And it kind of gave me a hidden season, I guess you could say, where I really got to, from afar, see Pastor Brian and Bobby and their heart for people, not just collectively, but individually. And I think kind of see the church that I was getting to be a part of and just how they are for the local church. They have a conference back in Sydney every year, and it's not to, how good's Hillsong Church, but it's building your local church everywhere.
Right, yeah.
And the importance of that. And I'd actually gone to that when I was 17, and it had left an amazing mark on my life. And so, again, hilariousness of God that I would come back to that church and I'm like, I never even liked Sydney. So long story short, we're there doing retail, and I had a moment, it was 2 weeks before I got asked to come in to do some backing vocals for the latest United project, which ended up being Zion. I got asked to do an audition for The Voice in Australia and for that singing competition, and went in. It went well, sang a couple of originals. They loved it. And you're fully dressed up,
yeah, sure.
Leather pants, cool jumper. And you're just like, this is me as an artist. And then they said, cool, we love it. We'll give you a call in 2 weeks. And that was the one just before they do it in front of a live TV audience. And again, I had another friend. Friends are very important, the godly kind. And she said, I'll back you if you do this and I'll back you if you don't. But you need to know if you do it, everything will change. And I freaked out and I was like, I hate change. So I'm like, God, if this is what you want me to do, open the door. If it's not, shut it. And then I'm good, whatever it is.
Wow.
And so he just filled me with heaps of peace and I didn't worry about it. And it was, almost 2 weeks of the day when Michael Guy Chislett is a producer and guitarist, and he sent a text, and randomly I'd been given that week off work, tried to get a different week, tried to fly home. The prices weirdly went up and I couldn't afford it. And I was like, great, I'm stuck in Sydney. I'm sure there's worse places to be stuck for a week's holiday.
Not too bad.
Yeah. And then meant to be hanging with my sister that day, but then got the text and I was like, is it okay if I go in? And she's like, 100%, this is insane. But I stupidly as well, I probably should have Googled people because I didn't really know half the guys or anything. And then so walked in and we did, backing vocals, which ended up being a lead vocal and singing the melody, but I didn't say anything and we just recorded.
Yeah, right.
And then they're like, hey, we'd love you to come back the next day. And so I did. And then we'd learn a verse of a song and would sing it, and then learnt the chorus, sing it, then learnt the bridge, and then we sang it. And then they kind of just let me go a little bit, and that ended up being Oceans. But I didn't tell anybody. I told 2 people because I didn't know if it was going to be on the album, and I didn't and I actually didn't end up hearing Oceans till a week before we went out to South Africa.
Wow.
Which is, it was insane. So I still didn't even know if it was going to be on the album. So we recorded that in November, and it was actually later on that November, again, another friend, I feel like God speaks to me through friends. For sure.
Yeah, there's a theme emerging. Yes.
Yeah. And he's like, and she says, have you thought about ministry? And I was like, no, I will always serve in church. I love being a part of church. And what I didn't get to say before was that week that we were in the studio recording Oceans, I got asked to lead worship at a youth ministry at one of the other campuses. That had never happened before. And then that weekend, I also, whilst I was in the studio, got asked to start co-worship leading within, main church. And I was like, that's all within 1 week. And they're all insane things. And I was like, okay, I think you're leading this direction, so I'm just going to go with it. Mm-hmm. I'd completely forgotten about the voice audition and all that kind of stuff. And I, again, was filled with peace and I wasn't worried. And in November, my friend had said, yeah, have you thought about ministry? And I was like, nah. And then she goes, don't put God in a box. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, just because it looks like this for someone else doesn't mean it has to look like that for you. Don't put him in a box. Wow. And I was like, okay. And then again, it wasn't until early February that I had the best lunch with our global creative pastor, Cass Langton, and that should have been a tip-off that you don't usually have lunch with the big boss. But I just, again, rookie. Mm. And so we sat down. She goes, would you quit your job? And I said, yeah. And she goes, will you quit it today? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, maybe. Because we want you to come on staff and we want you to look after the vocals at the city campus, and you have to quit today because you're going to South Africa next week with the United Boys for the Zion trip. Wow. Ensue ugly, crying face. And I'm just like, but I haven't been to uni. I'm like, are you sure? It was insane. And, then the next day, to be honest, I walked back into work and I'm just like, I got to tell you something. And they're just like, you're leaving, hey? And I'm like, yeah, how'd you know? And they're like, you're going to work for that church, hey? Because they used to always just assume whenever I was leaving, she's going to church, But they were happy for me. And it's been a crazy ride ever since. And wow. It's so God, though, if there's ever been moments where I'm like, it's a bit much, or it's, travel isn't as glamorous as people think it is. And yeah, sure. I feel like I've been jet lagged for a year properly. No going to bed before, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And I'm like, what am I doing? But I feel like for me anyway, I love words and I love lyrics. Still yet to get the songs out, but still love the lyrics. Yeah. And I feel like Oceans was a gift to me personally to be able to sing it, because it's been the soundtrack for my journey with, being a part of Hillsong United and being thrown into the whirlwind, and even how that kind of took off and took us into new territory. I hadn't been in any territory, so it was all new for me anyway, but that we'd be given songs that would say, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you call me. And he has called me into ridiculous places like the Middle East. And yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and places where you feel inadequate, or you're just God, I don't know if I'm the right person because, you know, I'm a rookie.
Yeah.
But then I feel like there was part of me in that was learning about the grace of God and how, like, if he calls you to it, he's going to grace you for it.
You can listen to this full interview and all of our Worship Together podcast episodes on Apple Podcast and everywhere podcasts are found.